Man, oh man. And so today is not going to be the regular production, right? This is just going to be me talking about a situation. And so Kevin Durant just made one of the most interesting comparisons I've heard all offseason. KD basically looked at the Philly roster and said, you got Joel Embiid, former MVP. You got Jaylen Brown, finals MVP. You got Tyrese Maxey, multiple-time All-Star. And LeBron James, one of the greatest players ever. So why are people acting like this team isn't comparable to the 2017 Golden State Warriors, right? That's the case Kevin Durant is trying to make. And I understand what he's trying to say. On a resume sheet, on paper, this Philly team looks like the Avengers, right? But basketball is not played on paper. Because when you actually look at what the 2017 Warriors were when Kevin Durant joined them, compared with what these players are right now, I'm sorry, but I mean, the situation just aren't close. And ironically, I think Kevin Durant is actually underrating how ridiculous his own Warriors team was. Matter of fact, I think Kevin Durant is just on the inside trying to find some company in terms of this super team conversation, right? And so KD is comparing accomplishments instead of current ability. This is the biggest problem with Kevin Durant's argument. KD is essentially saying Embiid has an MVP. Jaylen Brown has a finals MVP. LeBron is LeBron. Maxey is an all-star. Therefore, Philly's collection of talent compares to Golden State. But there's a major difference between what somebody has accomplished during their career and what version of that player currently exists. And that is the biggest thing here. The 2017 Warriors weren't collecting players based on things they've done 5 or 10 years earlier. Those dudes were doing it right then. Currently, Stephen Curry was 28. Kevin Durant was 28. Klay Thompson, 26. Draymond Green, 26. Think about that. Golden State's 4 best players were essentially sitting directly inside their athletic primes. Philly doesn't have that luxury. LeBron James is approaching 42. He's still extremely productive for his age. He's still one of the smartest offensive players in basketball. But comparing this version of LeBron to 2017 Kevin Durant or Stephen Curry simply because of his career resume, that's just not how basketball works. That's like saying a team signing 39-year-old Michael Jordan would have been getting the same Michael Jordan who won 6 championships. Same name, same resume, different player. And that's not disrespect. That's just aging. That's just part of life. And then Embiid changes everything because there's Joel Embiid. This might actually be the biggest difference between these teams because theoretically, healthy Joel Embiid is absolutely good enough to be the centerpiece of a championship team. We've seen MVP level Embiid. We've seen him average over 30. We've seen him dominate defensively. But the question isn't how good has Joel Embiid been. The question is how much of that Joel Embiid are Philly actually going to get. Availability matters. Durability matters. And the playoff durability really matters on top of that. 2017 Warriors didn't enter the season wondering whether their centerpiece's body could survive 4 playoff rounds. They had Steph Curry in his prime, Kevin Durant in his prime, Klay in his prime, Draymond in his prime. Philly has significantly more uncertainty. Because if Embiid isn't healthy, this entire comparison falls apart immediately. And that's what makes the Warriors comparison unfair. Golden State's dominance wasn't theoretical. We had already seen it. And I think lost through time, people forget how dominant the Warriors were before Kevin Durant. This is the part that really destroys the comparison. Kevin didn't join some talented team that everybody thought could become great. He joined a team that had already been great. Golden State won the 2015 NBA championship. Then the following season, 73 wins, best regular season record in NBA history. Back-to-back MVPs for Steph Curry. And they came within 1 victory of winning another championship, right? And people like to say, oh, they lost a championship. That does not, just because Curry failed in the playoffs, just because he choked in the playoffs, doesn't mean the team wasn't great, like at all. Just because they failed they failed in the championship does not give Kevin Durant a pass to join them. So think about how insane that is. Golden State essentially had a championship dynasty forming before Kevin Durant even got there. And then they added Kevin Durant, one of the greatest scorers in NBA history, right? Former MVP, a player who had just finished averaging roughly 28 points per game, a superstar firmly in his prime. Philly isn't adding prime Kevin Durant to a 73-win basketball team. They're assembling talented players and hoping everything works. Those aren't remotely the same situation. I mean, even if you had a healthy Joel Embiid and a healthy LeBron, Matter of fact, if you had healthy Joel Embiid and prime LeBron, this Philly team still probably won't win 73 games. If everyone was healthy and everyone's in their prime, they still probably wouldn't win 73 games. So the fact that LeBron is 42 and Joel Embiid has got no knees, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Then KD's Klay Thompson argument doesn't work either. This is where Kevin Durant's argument gets especially misleading, because KD basically pointed out that Klay Thompson was never an MVP candidate, which technically is true, but I mean, who cares? Klay doesn't need an MVP candidate, right? That's what made Golden State terrifying. Klay Thompson could give you 20 points while barely touching the basketball. He didn't need 15 dribbles. He didn't need isolation possessions. He didn't need the offense built around him. 60 points on 11 dribbles, I don't care if you've ever been MVP. I don't care. He could run Curry Durant actions on one side of the floor while one of the greatest shooters ever was standing somewhere else waiting for you to help. How exactly do you expect people to defend that? I mean, prime Klay could take difficult perimeter assignments. So Klay's value wasn't captured by saying he only averaged 22 points. You acting like all he did was just stand in the corner. I mean, this is Klay Thompson we're talking about. This is the same guy who saved the Warriors the previous year, the 73 win year in Game 6. This Game 6 Klay we're talking about. So don't try to act like, oh, he never been an MVP. Oh, he's nothing. And Draymond's stats are even more misleading than Klay Thompson's. Because if you're evaluating Draymond Green based on points per game, you already evaluate him incorrectly. Prime Draymond was arguably the most important defensive chess piece in basketball. This is a defensive player of the year that we're talking about. A player who could guard across positions, protect the rim, switch on the guards, quarterback the defense, grab a rebound, push the ball himself, and initiate Golden State's offense. Draymond's value was not how many points did he average. Draymond's value was how many different things can he do that allow everyone else to dominate. That's why the Warriors worked. They didn't simply have 4 famous players. They had 4 elite players whose games fit together perfectly. And that's also the biggest difference, the fit, right? This is where Philly has to prove themselves, because Maxey needs the ball. Jaylen Brown needs the ball. LeBron is historically at his best when he has the ball. Embiid operates heavily through post-ups, face-ups, and half-court possessions. So can they make it work? Absolutely. There's too much talent for me to say they can't make it work. But there are legitimate questions about offensive hierarchy, right? Who controls the offense late in games? Who sacrifices the touches? How frequently does LeBron play off the ball? How much does Embiid screen? Can Maxey maintain his aggressiveness? How does Brown fit when possessions become slower in the playoffs? These are the questions Philly has to answer. Golden State already had the answers. Steph could dominate with or without the basketball. Klay could dominate. Klay didn't even need the ball. Kevin Durant could score from anywhere. Draymond Green did not care about scoring. That's basketball heaven. Everybody's strengths complemented somebody else's. And Golden State has something that Philly just can't replicate, right? And that's continuity. Golden State's system existed before Kevin Durant arrived. Steph knew it, Klay knew it, Draymond knew it, Andre Iguodala knew it, the coaching staff knew it. The organization knew exactly what kind of basketball they wanted to play. Durant wasn't being asked to create an identity. He was being inserted into one. Philly is different. They are trying to create chemistry between several major personalities and offensive players while competing for a championship immediately. That doesn't mean it can't work, but it's much harder, and it's a big difference from the 2017 Warriors. The 2017 Warriors also had almost no exploitable weaknesses, right? This is what made them terrifying. Normally, great teams force you to pick a poison, right? The Warriors basically said, every option is a poison. You want to double Curry, Durant gets space. You want to double Durant, Steph gets space. You want to help off Klay, good luck with that. You want to play traditional bigs, then Golden State goes small. You want to go small yourself, then Kevin Durant at 6'11" becomes one of the biggest players on the floor. You want to attack Curry, Golden State could switch, right? Or protect him with elite defenders around him. And then you still had Iguodala coming off the bench. I mean, that's why this team eventually went 16-1 in the 2017 playoffs. They didn't merely win the championship. They practically steamrolled through the postseason. Philly hasn't played one meaningful playoff game together yet. We're comparing the possibility against historical dominance. And even the superstars are different. Let's simplify this even further, right? The 2 best players on the 2017 Warriors, 28-year-old Stephen Curry, 28-year-old Kevin Durant. 2 MVPs in their prime. 2 historically great offensive players. Both directly in the smack dab middle of their primes. Philly's two biggest names are LeBron and Joel Embiid, but one is approaching 42. The other carries major durability questions. That's the big difference. If you told me Philly had a 28-year-old LeBron and a completely healthy Embiid, now you have a comparison. But at the same time, just to play both sides, Philly can absolutely be a super team without being compared to Golden State, right? And because saying Philly isn't comparable to Golden State doesn't mean Philly isn't stacked, because they are. They obviously are. Like if you roll out on a court and your 5 players are Max, Brown, Embiid, LeBron, I mean, it's hard to say that's not a super team, right? Because you have the scoring, the playmaking, the star power, the playoff experience. Multiple players capable of taking over games. So I understand why Durant looks at those names and say, why aren't people treating this like they treated us? But the answer is simple, and that's because context matters. Golden State wasn't criticized simply because of having 4 good players that happened to play together. Golden State was criticized because a 73-win team that already won a championship, that already had the first MVP, that already had Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, then added one of the 3 best players alive to the team in his prime. That's the difference, Kevin Durant. That's the difference. But I also think there's another layer to it also, right? Because Kevin Durant has spent almost a decade hearing people diminish those Warriors championships because the team was supposedly too stacked. So naturally, when another star assembles this much talent, Durant is going to notice, right? He's basically saying, if my team was unfair, why isn't this team unfair? And that's a reasonable question. But the answer isn't that Philly isn't talented. The answer is that Golden State was historically abnormal. The Warriors had already proven they could dominate the NBA without Durant. I mean, think about it. If Kevin Durant never joined the Warriors, over those next 5 years after 2016 plus, let's do 2016 to 2020, over those next 4 or 5 years, right? How many of those would have ended up being Golden State championships versus OKC championships? I would argue Golden State without Kevin Durant would have easily made all, or I mean the vast majority of those championships. They might not have won, but they would have definitely made it to the finals. But that's the thing. On the other hand, Philly hasn't proven that this particular group can dominate anything. Golden State added a prime superstar to an established machine. Philly assembled aging stars, current stars, and players with legitimate durability questions, and now has to turn those pieces into a machine. That's completely different. They have to make it versus you joining it, brother. And so Kevin Durant isn't crazy for looking at Philly and seeing a super team. Because on paper, I mean, it looks like it, right? LeBron, Embiid, Brown, Maxey, then you still got Edgecombe. But comparing them to the 2017 Warriors, that's where I draw the line personally. Because the 2017 Warriors weren't dominant because they had the most impressive collection of career accomplishments. They were dominant because almost everything lined up simultaneously. Prime Steph, prime KD, prime Klay, prime Draymond, elite shooting, elite defense, elite playmaking, championship exercise, an established team, and 4 stars whose game complemented each other almost perfectly. They finished 67-15 and went 16-1 in the playoffs. Philly might win the championship, they might dominate the Eastern Conference, but in no way are they going 16-1 in the playoffs. Don't compare a team that looks good on paper to a team that already looked good on the court. The 2017 Warriors weren't scary because of the names on their roster. They were scary because those names were all in their primes and the basketball fit was almost perfect. And that is the difference, Kevin Durant. Sheesh. Listen, if you like these kind of videos, like, subscribe, because we just passed 300 subscribers and we on the road to 500. So let's get there together.